My name is Leora, and for a long time, I thought being a good person meant staying quiet. I thought if I kept giving, kept showing up, kept putting everyone else first, maybe, just maybe, someone would see me. But the thing about silence is, it teaches people how to treat you. Until one day, you wake up and realize the weight you've been carrying was never yours to begin with. Please stay with me till the end of this story. And when it's over, let me know in the comments. Did I do the right thing? Was I selfish? Or finally just honest? I'd really like to hear what you would have done. I still remember that day, one of those late September Saturdays where the wind felt like a quiet warning. It was the day I realized that sometimes, family can be the loneliest place to exist. My name is Leora Penn. I'm 34 years old, and I clean toilets at Meriton International Airport in Minneapolis. It's not glamorous. It's not something you dream about as a little girl. But it's mine. I've been doing it for 9 years. The pay is steady, the benefits are decent, and after a while, you start to understand the dignity in wiping away what others pretend not to see. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Claiborne Terrace. Small place, third floor. Windows facing a row of tired sycamore trees that haven't given up just yet. Every weekday, I pack a sandwich, take the 5:40 a.m. bus, and mop floors while half the world still sleeps. Lunch is usually on a bench behind Terminal B, where no one talks unless something's broken. Quiet suits me. There's a kind of peace in doing your job well, even when no one claps for it. But that Saturday, I made the mistake of showing up late, and still showing up. It was a family meetup. My younger sister, Seren, had invited us to Mocha Nest, one of those hip little cafes where the lattes come with hearts and everyone pretends not to judge. She was introducing her boyfriend, Camden, a guy from her media studies program at Rosewood University. Seren's 21, smart, pretty, and effortlessly charming. The kind of person who lights up a room just by walking in. At least, that's how my parents describe her. I walked in 5 minutes after them, still in my airport uniform, my hair in a messy bun, the faint smell of disinfectant clinging to my sleeves. I'd worked a double shift the night before, and the bus had run late. There wasn't time to go home and change. I told myself it was fine. We sat around a little table near the window. Serene wore her favorite olive blazer, makeup perfect, smile effortless. Camden asked polite questions at first. What do I do? Where do I live? And then it happened. Seren leaned in, almost laughing as she answered for me. She cleans toilets at the airport, she said, like it was a punchline. There was a beat of silence. Camden gave a half smile. My mom, Marjorie, sitting next to me, chuckled like she was trying to cover it up. She lives a simple life. She's always been like that. No fuss, she added, looking down at her coffee, as if that somehow made it less cruel. I smiled. Not because I was okay, not because I found it funny. I smiled because that's what I've always done when I feel myself slowly disappearing in a room full of people who claim to love me. No one asked me how I was doing. No one noticed I hadn't touched my drink. I just sat there, nodding at nothing, folding my napkin into smaller and smaller squares, like I could hide inside one. Later, on the ride home, I stared out the bus window at the city lights, trying to shake it off. People say family means acceptance, unconditional love, but they don't talk about the quiet betrayals, the ones that come in familiar voices. My phone buzzed. An Instagram DM from a name I didn't recognize. Hey, did you see your sister's clip? Kind of viral. You look rough. Sorry. My stomach tightened. I tapped the link. There it was. Me, hunched over a paper cup at the cafe, my uniform clearly visible, eyes tired, hair frizzy. Serene had filmed it, cut out the sound, added background music and a caption in bold white font. When you bring your family to meet your man, and your sister brings the scent of bleach. The comments were full of laughing emojis. Some said, OMG, she's adorable, like pity was affection. One said, this can't be real. Another, I'd die if this was my family. I sat back against the seat. Everything outside the window blurred. I felt something twist in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just that familiar ache. The kind that tells you you've been here before. And somehow, you'll probably be here again. I didn't cry. I didn't respond. I just watched my own face on that screen. Quiet, awkward, out of place. And wondered how long I'd been cast in that role, without realizing the script wasn't mine. That was the moment something shifted. I didn't know it then, but that night would be the beginning of the end of who I used to be. I didn't tell anyone about the video. Not my coworkers, not my boss, not the old woman who always shares her cough drops with me on the bus ride home. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't throw anything against the wall. It just settled inside me, like fog crawling in under a door you forgot to close. I sat in my apartment that night, phone still open in my lap, screen dimming every few seconds, the words looping in my mind. Why cut it that way? Why the music? The captions? Why did she think that was okay? It wasn't the public part that hurt the most. It was that she knew me, knew my face when I'm exhausted, knew I'd show up in uniform, and still, decided I was worth mocking for laughs. And somehow, like always, I said nothing. I guess. I've grown used to being last in the room. The next morning, I returned to work like normal. Nothing felt different, but everything did. I walked the same halls at Meriton Airport, pushed the same mop cart, refilled the same soap dispensers. But I felt seen in all the wrong ways, like someone had drawn a red circle around me and whispered, "Look closely. This is failure." At break, I sat in the staff lounge, sipping from a cracked thermos, when Tasha, one of the new hires, flopped into the chair across from me. She scrolled on her phone, let out a laugh, then glanced up. "Hey, do you have TikTok?" I hesitated. Number why? "There's this video going around. Some girl filming her sister at a coffee shop. Looked a lot like you. She said something about bleach. I think it was a joke." I managed a smile that didn't belong to me. "Probably just someone else." Tasha shrugged and went back to scrolling. I sat there, heat crawling up my neck. Not from anger, but that strange shame you feel when someone exposes a part of you didn't agree to show. That evening, I stopped by Clean Nest, a little laundromat tucked between a nail salon and an insurance office. I'd run out of detergent, but mostly I just needed to be somewhere quiet, somewhere with machines humming, things spinning in order. And that's where I saw her. Elise Tran. We used to work together years ago, back when I first started at Meriton. She did night shift janitorial like me. Small, sharp-eyed, always wore her hair in a braid that reached the middle of her back. I hadn't seen her in ages. "Leora?" She blinked. "Damn, you look exactly the same." I smiled, for real this time. "You look like you own the place." "I do," she said, proud but not flashy. "Quit the airport 4 years ago, got tired of the way they treated us, took what I saved and opened this dump." "It's not a dump," I said, looking around. It was clean, warm, smelled like lavender sheets. We talked a while, about work, life, the way customers complain when the dryer eats a sock but tip nothing. At one point, I told her I still worked nights, that I paid Seren's tuition, that my folks still talked to me like I never really got it right. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and said, "You know, I used to think being quiet made me strong. Like, if I didn't make waves, people would see I was good." I nodded slowly. "But then," she continued, "I realized I wasn't being good. I was being afraid. Afraid that if I said no, I'd lose people. Afraid that if I asked for more, I'd look ungrateful. You ever feel that?" I didn't answer right away. "Yeah," I whispered, "every day." Elise's voice softened. "You're not wrong for wanting respect, Leora. Even kind people need boundaries, especially us." That line, "even kind people need boundaries," stuck with me. Not because it was new, but because no one had ever said it out loud to me before. When I left Clean Nest, the air had turned cooler. I walked the long way home, past the old bookstore near Lexington Avenue. The sign was peeling. A light blinked behind the open sign. That store used to be my dream. When I was 15, I told myself I'd be a librarian, that I'd live among paper and quiet and stories people wanted to read. I paused there for a long time, didn't go in, just stood on the sidewalk staring through the glass, thinking about all the things we abandon not because they're impossible, but because we think we're not allowed to want them. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe I didn't have to keep being invisible. Not yet a change, but a crack. And sometimes that's how light gets in. The phone rang just after 8 p.m. I let it buzz through the first round, hoping it would stop. But of course, it didn't. It never did. Leora? My mother's voice came sharp, already halfway into the conversation, like I'd interrupted her instead of the other way around. Your father's upset. He saw that you canceled the auto transfer to Serene's tuition account. What's going on? I said nothing. She sighed like I was making things harder than they needed to be. That clip, it was just a joke. You know how kids are these days. Everything's content. Why are you taking it so personally? I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. My voice came out flat. Because her joke made strangers laugh at me. She didn't mean it that way. She edited the video. She added music, captions. She meant every second of it. There was silence for a beat, then a shift in tone. Softer, manipulative. Look, baby, I know it stung, but she needs you. College isn't cheap. You think she can finish without your help? I stared at the blank wall in front of me. Maybe she should have thought about that before she made a circus out of her family. You're being unfair, she said, low and clipped. Serene's under a lot of pressure. This whole influencer thing, she's just trying to build a future. So was I whispered. She didn't hear me. Or maybe she didn't want to. The call ended the way it always did, with a heavy pause and a line going dead before either of us could fix anything. 10 minutes later, I got the email. Subject: Tuition Emergency. From seren.pen@rosewood.edu. It was full of phrases like, I'm trying my best, and this semester is crucial, and I'm sorry if I hurt you. But that wasn't my intention. Toward the end, she wrote, They said I have 10 days to pay, or I'll get a financial hold. Please, Leora, you know I can't do this without you. Attached was a screenshot of her student account balance. Red numbers, big deadline. I stared at it like it was some kind of test I wasn't prepared for. Then came the text from my father. Just one line. Adults don't hold grudges against children. Don't hurt your sister more than she's already hurting. I don't know what I expected. Maybe just once, someone asking if I was okay. I sat on my couch, the email open, my father's message still glowing. That old weight settled on my shoulders again, the one made of guilt and obligation and years of being the responsible one. I felt it like rope tightening across my chest. It wasn't just about money. It was about being the one who always had to carry the broken pieces so no one else would bleed. Part of me wanted to give in. Of course I did. It's what I've always done. Write the check, swallow the hurt, convince myself that family means forgiveness, even when they never asked for it. But something had shifted. I opened Serene's video again, this time with the sound on, no distractions. I watched myself sitting there, looking small and tired, a background character in someone else's story. Then I noticed something I hadn't caught before. Right after Serene delivers the punchline, she brings the scent of bleach. Someone laughs. Not Camden, not Serene. My mother. A soft, muffled chuckle, like she was proud of the delivery. It wasn't loud, you had to listen for it. But it was there. And it broke something. Because that laugh told me everything I needed to know. She didn't just ignore what Serene did. She endorsed it. She thought it was funny. And suddenly, it wasn't just about the clip. It was about all the times they chose Serene over me. All the times I was expected to give without being seen. I stood up, walked to my printer, and hit print. The clip's transcript. The photo. The post. I didn't do it to be vindictive. I did it to remind myself this was real. that I wasn't being dramatic, that I had the right to name what happened. I slid the printed pages into a manila envelope and left it on my kitchen table. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was preparation. Something in me was done pretending that love meant silence. The thing about choices is that they never come clean. They come wrapped in guilt, tangled up in memory, cloaked in the soft voices of people who once told you that being good meant being quiet. I sat at my kitchen table for over an hour, staring at the envelope I had printed and sealed. It sat like a dare in front of me. I could have tossed it in the trash, could have logged into my banking app, sent the tuition payment like always, and told myself this too, was just another bump in a long road of quiet sacrifices. But something in me kept my hand still. What if I didn't save her this time? What if I let her sit in the mess she made? Let her feel the cold edges of consequences she thought she'd never have to touch? Would that make me cruel? Or finally, human? That Sunday, Elise texted out of nowhere. Got the morning off. You want to walk Lake Hiawatha? I'll bring donuts. We met by the little boathouse just past 10 a.m. She had her hoodie on inside out, same as always, and a steaming thermos of cinnamon tea in hand. No lipstick, no pretense. Just Elise being Elise. I hadn't seen that lake in years. Not since Dad used to herd us there for family picnics that always felt more like performances than bonding. Forced smiles, burnt hot dogs, and that heavy silence between him and Mom that never made it into the photo albums. We didn't talk much at first, just walked. Leaves crackled beneath our sneakers, the kind of fall crunch that always made me feel 10 years old again. Trees shedding their gold like they were trying to teach us something about letting go. After a while, Elise stopped and picked up a flat stone, skipped it once, maybe twice, across the glassy water. I've been thinking, she said, not looking at me. You've spent your whole life holding things together for people who never once asked how you were doing. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She turned toward me, hands shoved deep into her hoodie pocket. If you weren't responsible for anyone, who would you be? The question hit harder than I expected. I stopped walking. I don't know, I admitted, voice smaller than I liked. Then maybe it's time you find out, she said. Not pushing, just offering. It didn't feel like judgment. It felt like permission. Later that week, I was in the break room at the airport, finishing off a vending machine coffee, when I saw her, my mother. She stood in the doorway like she owned the place, one hand clutching her purse tight against her ribs, face pale and pulled tight like she'd rehearsed what to say and forgotten all the lines. Can we talk? She asked, loud enough that Tasha and another coworker paused mid-chew. I nodded. We stepped into the hallway near the custodial lockers, the smell of bleach faint in the air. Serene's panicking, Mom started. She hasn't been eating. Her professors say she's not herself. Do you really want her to drop out of school? I crossed my arms. She made a video that humiliated me. She shared it, edited it, put music over it. This isn't about a mistake, it's about disrespect. She's young, she snapped. It was dumb and careless, yes. But she didn't mean harm. She's 21, Mom. She's old enough to vote, drink, and ruin someone's dignity online. Mom's eyes flashed. If she loses that scholarship, it's over for her. Is that what you want? To destroy her just to prove a point? I stepped forward, not to scare her, but so she'd really have to look at me. What about my future? I asked. Did anyone ask about that when I dropped out of school so she could go? When I cleaned floors for 12 years so she could have the luxury of chasing dreams? When I worked doubles, skipped birthdays, ignored my own needs so she wouldn't have to? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I watched her search for something, an excuse maybe, or a justification. She came up empty. You're asking me to save her, I said softly, but nobody ever tried to save me. There it was. For the first time in my life, I saw it. Something flicker behind her eyes. Not regret, not even sorrow. Just the realization that I wasn't going to bend this time. That the oldest daughter she depended on to stay quiet had finally found a volume she could no longer control. That night, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, long enough to feel the familiar ache of hesitation. Then I typed. Subject. Regarding the conduct of student Serene Penn, I attached everything. The video, screenshots, dates, links, no added commentary, no angry paragraph to explain myself, just the truth, laid bare and direct. I copied the Student Ethics Board at Rosewood. I included the program director at Nova Reach. Then I hit send. My hands trembled, not from guilt, not from fear, but from release. It wasn't revenge. It was a boundary. And for once in my life, I had chosen myself. The email came faster than I expected. Less than 24 hours after I hit send, there it was, sitting in my inbox like a quietly ticking clock. The Dean of Student Conduct at Rosewood had replied. We've received your report. The Student Ethics Committee will review the matter in accordance with university policy. A preliminary hearing will be scheduled. Please let us know if you're open to answering any follow-up questions. Serene's scholarship provider, Nova Reach, was copied on the thread. I stared at the screen for a long time. No fireworks, no dramatic music, just black text on a white background. And then, silence. For nearly 2 days, nothing happened. No calls, no texts, no knock at the door. It almost felt like I had imagined the whole thing. Maybe they dismissed it. Maybe they thought it was petty. Maybe I was overreacting after all. Then the phone rang. It was her. Serene's voice cracked before I could even say hello. You reported me? She gasped. To the school. Leora, what the hell is wrong with you? I sat on the floor of my apartment, knees pulled into my chest, gripping the phone like it might splinter in my hand. I didn't report you, I said softly. I reported what you did. There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath. They're talking about expulsion, she said, her voice rising. Do you even realize that? I could lose everything because of this. She was crying now, loud, panicked. Not the soft kind of crying you do when you're sad. The kind that comes when you feel exposed. When your world starts to tilt and you can't control the way people look at you anymore. I wasn't trying to hurt you, she said between shallow breaths. I just wanted to feel seen. I thought it was funny, or at least harmless. I didn't think you'd take it so seriously. I didn't think you'd turn on me. I didn't turn on you, I said. You turned me into content. She didn't respond. The line went dead a moment later. I sat in silence, letting the words hang in the air like fog. That afternoon, it all came crashing down. My phone rang over and over again. First Mom, then Dad, then both at the same time. I ignored them all. But by 6 p.m., they were at my apartment, standing outside like it was a family emergency, and I was the only one holding the cure. I opened the door an inch. That was a mistake. Marjorie shoved past me without a word, eyes blazing. Edric followed, arms crossed, face blank. You had no right, Mom snapped, jabbing a finger toward my chest. No right to do that to her. She's your sister, Leora. Blood, she's your daughter, I replied, voice calm but firm. Not your brand. Mom narrowed her eyes. Don't play saint with me. You think this makes you brave? Noble? You're pathetic. You're just jealous because for once someone saw her instead of you. She made a fool of me in front of the world, I said. And you laughed. Her voice trembled as it rose. Only small people go airing dirty laundry. You think you're strong? You're small, Leora. That's what you are. Then Edric spoke, low, even, cold. You should never have been her sister. My breath caught. That one hit like a shovel to the chest. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I looked down at my hands. These hands that had scrubbed airport bathrooms, signed tuition checks, carried groceries up 3 flights of stairs for the woman now calling me small. These hands had never once been raised in anger, but apparently they were dangerous now, villainous. I stood there as they stormed out, door slamming behind them. And then it was just me, alone in my apartment, with the echo of old accusations and a silence that felt colder than winter. I didn't eat dinner, didn't move, just sat on the couch, blinking slowly, as if I could reverse the last hour by staying perfectly still. At some point, I reopened my laptop and hovered over the original email I'd sent. My cursor rested on the unsend button. I could walk it back, say I was upset, say I regretted it. I could go back to being the sister who fixes everything. Then, I remembered what Elise had messaged me after our walk by the lake. No one is born to be the scapegoat for someone else's lack of self-awareness. Not even you. I read it again. Then, one more time. And I left the email alone. 3 days later, an official update arrived from the university. Seren had lost her full scholarship. She'd been placed on academic suspension for 1 semester. If she wanted to return, she'd need to complete an ethics course and submit a formal statement of accountability. Novareach sent a separate notice, terminating her grant effective immediately. But that wasn't the end. The clip, the one she edited and captioned, resurfaced online, this time not as a joke, but as an example of what not to do. Influencer mocks sister's job, gets suspended from school. Her name was everywhere. The comments weren't kind. Followers dropped, brands pulled out, friends distanced themselves. And me? I didn't feel proud. But I didn't feel erased anymore either. I wasn't invisible. Not this time. I knew she'd show up, not because she owed me anything, but because people like Seren can't sit too long in silence. They thrive in noise, likes, shares, flattery, and when that noise dries up, they come looking for someone to blame. It was just after 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. I'd just gotten home from work, feet aching, bones humming from 10 hours of being on them. I made a bowl of soup, something warm and easy, and had just sat down when I heard the knock. Sharp, fast, like urgency could rewrite the past. I opened the door. And there she was. Serene stood in my doorway, looking like the version of herself no one ever saw online. No ring light, no glossed lips, no curated outfits. Just her. Hair frizzy, hoodie too big, eyes swollen from either crying or pretending not to. "You need to fix this," she said, voice trembling and bitter all at once. "I could lose everything. My scholarship, my future. Do you even realize what you've done?" I didn't invite her in. I just leaned against the doorframe and looked at her. Really looked. Not as the golden child, not as the one I sacrificed for. Just a person standing in the ruins of her own making. "Do you realize what you've done?" I asked quietly. She stepped inside anyway, like the apartment still belonged to her, like I was the guest. "I just wanted people to see me," she snapped, "to see that I had a story worth telling, that I was somebody. You're the one who turned this into a disaster." "I didn't ask to be recorded, or mocked, or turned into your punchline," I said. Serene's voice cracked. "Why do you always have to be so dramatic? You've always been like this, fragile. You act like you're a saint, but deep down, you just want people to feel sorry for you." That hit something buried. I set the soup down, stood fully upright, and looked her in the eye. "I've never wanted pity," I said. "I've just spent my whole life being treated like I don't get to hurt, like I don't get to say no." She blinked, thrown off by how steady my voice was. "I gave up school so you could go," I continued. "I worked nights, covered rent when you came up short, made excuses to mom and dad when you messed up, and paid for semesters you didn't even thank me for. I've cleaned bathrooms for almost a decade so you could have a chance I never got." Her lips parted, but no words came. "I thought you were proud of that," she finally muttered. "Proud of being the strong one." I was tired of being the only one who didn't get to fall apart. Serene's jaw tightened. "This is about shame, isn't it? You hate what you do and wanted to take me down with you." I let out a laugh, hollow, quiet. Not cruel, just tired. "I've never been ashamed of my work," I said. "But I'm ashamed that I thought one day you'd understand the weight of it. That you'd say thank you instead of turning me into a punchline for your followers." That shut her up. She looked down at the floor, then back up at me. I could see the flicker of something in her eyes. Remorse, maybe. But it didn't stay. Her voice rose again. So that's it? You're cutting me off? Yes. She blinked, stunned. Just like that? Not just like that, I said. After years, after sacrifice, after begging for crumbs of decency. This isn't punishment, Seren. It's the first boundary I've ever set. She stood frozen for a few seconds, then grabbed her bag and moved toward the door. Before she left, she turned to say one last thing. Don't come crying when you realize no one's going to clap for you either. And then she slammed the door. I didn't move. Not for a long while. Eventually, I slid down the wall and sat on the floor. The soup had gone cold. The room was quiet, too quiet, except for the soft buzz of the refrigerator and the sound of my own breathing. Then the text came. From Dad. Don't come to the house again. We don't need your poison here. No love, Dad. No, let's talk. Just a sentence that cut the last rope tying me to them. And still, I didn't scream. I didn't rage. But I cried. Not for them. For the girl I used to be. The one who believed love meant staying small, staying useful, staying silent. The one who believed if she just gave enough, swallowed enough, sacrificed enough, she would finally earn a place. This time the tears were mine. And I didn't apologize for them. Saturday morning came the way most mornings do. Quiet, gray, with a chill pressing through the window panes. I woke before the sun. The same as always. But something was different. I didn't feel urgency buzzing in my chest. No alarm bells, no list of people to take care of before myself. I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't throw on my uniform. I just sat for a moment, breathing in the silence like it was something holy. For once, the silence wasn't heavy. It was mine. I made coffee, slow and careful, letting the sound of the drip fill the room. The light outside was soft, seeping in through the blinds like the world wasn't quite ready to be loud yet. Neither was I. I started cleaning. Not the kind you do when someone's coming over, but the kind that makes room inside you. I opened drawers I hadn't touched in years. One by one, I sorted through papers, receipts, and old envelopes that had collected like dust in my life. Then I found the drawer. Tucked away in the corner of my cabinet, beneath an old calendar and a half-used notebook, was the stack. Serene's tuition records, payment confirmations, emergency wire transfers with subject lines like urgent and last chance. Bank statements showing balances so low I once skipped groceries to make them happen. I sat on the floor and flipped through them slowly, touching each page like it held a piece of me. In a way, it did. I'd carried her for so long, I didn't even realize how much space she'd taken up. I stacked them all, neat, deliberate, and slid them into a box. Sealed it. Labeled it in pen. Done. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. Near the front door, on the corkboard I usually ignored, was a faded yellow post-it. You're allowed to say no. Elise had given it to me after one of our first conversations. I'd smiled then, nodded, and tucked it away like something sweet but unrealistic. But I never took it down. Something in me must have known I'd need that sentence to hit harder later. And now, it did. That afternoon, Elise and I met at a little tea shop on Monroe Avenue. Honey and Thyme. It had lace curtains, chipped saucers, and smelled like bergamot and honeycomb. The kind of place where time felt slower and the world forgot to shout. She was already at a corner table by the window when I arrived, nursing a mug of something floral. Her eyes met mine, soft and steady. No judgment, no questions, just space. I sat down and let it all pour out, every raw corner I'd been holding in. I told her about the phone calls, the door slammed in my face, the text from my father that still echoed when things got too quiet. About how much it hurt to not be missed, to finally choose yourself and realize it meant stepping away from people who never knew how to love you gently. When I finished, I waited for her to fix it. That's what people usually try to do when they see you cracked open. But Elise didn't offer bandages. She just reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "No one saved you, Leora. You did that yourself." Her words landed with more weight than I expected. I looked down at our hands, her thumb brushing over mine, and for a moment, I wasn't 34 and tired. I was 16 again, dreaming of being a librarian, believing that books and stories could make you brave. That night, I walked to Orland Public Library with my coat zipped up to my chin and a paper folder tucked under my arm. I didn't go there to borrow anything, I went to sign up. They had an adult learning program, Intro to Public Service Management, a night class, 2 days a week, something small, something mine. The librarian, a man in his 60s with kind eyes and crooked glasses, asked if I needed help with the form. "I've got it," I said, surprising even myself. Back home, I pulled the faded post-it from the corkboard and pinned a new note beneath it. "You're more than what you've carried." I didn't cry. Not then. But I stood in front of it for a long time, reading it like a prayer. I was finally ready to believe. On Tuesday, after my first class, I stepped out of the library into a sky brushed in peach and lavender. The air smelled like dry leaves and cinnamon gum. Someone walking past must have just unwrapped a piece. I tucked the course catalog under one arm and held the folder close to my chest. Then, across the street, I saw them. The black sedan was hard to miss. My father behind the wheel. My mother sitting stiffly beside him. Serene in the back, eyes glued to her phone. They didn't see me, or maybe they did, and just didn't stop. The light changed. They kept driving. Not a glance. Not a flicker of recognition. Nothing. But I didn't shrink. I didn't ache. I stood right where I was, watching them disappear into traffic. And it didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like peace. They didn't look at me, but I looked at myself. And I saw a woman, not a burden, not a rescuer, not the forgotten firstborn, just me, standing tall, holding my own future in my hands, with nothing left to prove. And I smiled. Not because it was over, but because it had truly begun. The floor at Meriton Airport still shines the same way it always has. Still smells like lemon and ammonia if you mix the solution just right and don't let it sit too long. I know every stubborn scuff mark in Terminal B, every squeaky wheel on every janitor cart, every flickering light in the women's restroom near Gate 22 that somehow never gets replaced. But something feels different now. It's not lighter, not easier. The job is still the job. It's just mine. This morning, as I pushed my cart down the corridor past Gate 18, I heard footsteps catch up beside me. It was Alana, one of the newer janitors, early 20s, always keeps her earbuds in, but says hi, with a shy little wave every morning. She slowed her pace and leaned in slightly, like she had a secret to share. "I heard you're taking a management class," she said, grinning like I'd told her I won the lottery. I nodded. "Yeah, just started last week." She beamed. "That's so cool. Honestly, it's inspiring." The word caught me off guard. Inspiring. No one had ever used that word for me. I've been reliable, quiet, hardworking. But never that. I smiled back at her and said, "I'm just learning how to live for myself." Finally. She gave me a thumbs up and headed off toward the custodial closet. And I stood there for a moment, hand on the mop handle, heart a little fuller than it had been 10 minutes earlier. An hour later, I saw someone I didn't expect, one of the program directors from Nova Reach. She was walking through security, clearly mid-travel, with a rolling bag, lanyard badge, and the tired, slightly stressed look of someone who lives in airports more than offices. She caught sight of me, paused, then walked straight over. "You're Leora Penn, right?" I blinked. "Yes." She offered a small, sincere smile. "I just wanted to thank you for what you shared. That video, it was hard to watch. But what you did, it mattered. It made us take a hard look at how we choose the voices we support." I wasn't sure how to respond. I nodded, hands resting on my cart, heart suddenly beating a little faster. Not from fear, from recognition. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you think. And it did, because for once, someone saw me not as an accessory to someone else's future, not as the dependable, forgettable background character. They saw me as someone who stood for something. Later that week, I was folding laundry when my phone lit up. Mom. I let it ring once, twice. I thought about ignoring it. Then I answered. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Hesitant. Leora, I've been thinking. Maybe I was too hard on you. I stayed quiet. She took a breath. But Seren, she's always been more sensitive. She's the kind who needs protection. There it was. The old song. Different verse. I felt my body brace for impact, ready to fold myself small, like always. But I didn't. I'm not angry anymore, Mom, I said. But I can't keep living like I used to. I won't. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then she said softly, Okay, and hung up. No apology. No request to talk more. Just the kind of silence that happens when someone realizes the person they used to rely on won't play the same part anymore. That night, I came home and took out the photo Alice had given me from the book fair downtown. It was one of those cheap instant prints. The colors were a little off, the lighting uneven. But we were both laughing. Real laughs, open mouth, eyes crinkled kind. I was wearing no makeup. She had a donut in her hand. I framed it and pinned it on the wall above my little desk. Underneath, in blue ink, I wrote, Don't ever apologize for choosing your own joy. It wasn't much, just a photo and a sentence, but it was the first thing I'd ever put on that wall just for me. Later that evening, I curled up in the old chair by the window, with a blanket and a cup of mint tea. Outside, Minneapolis blinked and shimmered, headlights sweeping through the dark like slow-moving stars, windows glowing across buildings like miniature universes full of other lives, other stories. No one called, no texts, no arguments waiting in my inbox. And the silence didn't ache. It felt warm. I thought about all the years I'd spent giving without being asked, all the apologies I handed out like candy for simply wanting space. I sipped my tea, pressed my cheek to the cushion, and whispered into the quiet. No one should have to pay for someone else's ingratitude, not even me. I pulled the blanket tighter, not guilt, not obligation, just warmth. And I let myself rest. Not because I'd finally gotten what I deserved, but because, at last, I believed I deserved something at all. Sometimes we spend so long trying to be enough for others, we forget to ask if they've ever tried to be enough for us. This story wasn't about winning or proving a point. It was about remembering that you have the right to draw a line, especially when the people closest to you keep stepping over it. Have you ever had to choose peace over belonging? If this story reminded you of something you've lived through, or something you're still learning, I hope you'll take a moment to share it. And if it stayed with you, even just a little, I'd love to have you here next time too.